that the brass.
All right, this is a special edition of Lock and Load, the after action for the Peruta case. We just heard with a lot of dropouts because there were like 15, 1,600 people watching the Peruta case. Uh, Paul Clement got on there for like 3 minutes, and then they yanked him off because he was the only good lawyer in the room. And then we heard a bunch of idiots arguing with judges for about another hour and 10 minutes after that. So, all right. So, gee
What
whiz,
I
what did you
like
think?
is,
Oh, well, I'll just let this one go. Everybody has an opinion.
yeah,
Go.
but basically they're like, oh, you can't carry on the streets, but you can carry in a building. How are you supposed to get to the damn building if you can't walk on the streets? Or even if you own the building, they're like, oh, you can carry in your business if you want, but to and from your vehicle, you can't. That's bullshit. And then having to unload your firearm on the street, what are you supposed to do? I'm going to leave a building. I want to draw my firearm, unload it, walk out on the street, go into the next building, draw your firearm again, load it. Oh, you want to talk about negligent discharges, handling that often, in and out of every fucking building, bullshit. And it's a small hindrance. Oh my god.
It's ridiculous. Everything they said showed that
There,
they don't know what they're talking about. Suggesting that carrying around ammo in your pocket while you're carrying around a firearm is somehow worthwhile. It's ridiculous. And they put it the way they talked about it. It's an equivalent for them. You're protected if you have a firearm without ammunition in it. And
the
it
issues
just
that were important that I was talking about last night are the level of scrutiny, strict scrutiny, constitutional scrutiny, or intermediate scrutiny, and there was a means and scrutiny that somebody talked about. And the other, so scrutiny was an important issue that some of the judges brought up, and I'm gonna need a moment to remember what the other one was because I don't know, it was last night.
Well, but like you're saying, the idea that they're willing to accept some of these ridiculous claims as non, infringements, or that they're equatable to being able to defend yourself is ridiculous. The fact that they put being able to defend yourself as a reason to even talk about any of this is, shows that they don't understand the whole thing.
Yeah. What got me about the whole thing is that catch-22 of, you can't legally carry a firearm, but if you do use a firearm on the streets in self-defense, and you prove that it's self-defense, then you're okay. They dropped that charge. It's so stupid.
You're guilty until unless if the DA says it's not self-defense, then you're guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah. So let's say I'm in my place of business. I go toss the trash, and I use my firearm in self-defense. That's bullshit. Absolute bullshit.
Right, so you're suggesting that their concept of having to load and unload as you enter and exit places of private ownership and then going into the public and having to load and unload, again, it would
Absolutely.
be completely easy to do the research on that and find out that most firearms accidents happen when you don't expect them, and that is when you're loading and unloading and those kind of when you're doing your operation, not when you're actually using the implement. So right there, you
Absolutely.
think you'd be able to show them that what they're imposing is actually less safe, and then you could show them that that's the math is wrong, that by making people load and unload that you would actually be increasing the accidents. And I would think that same logic, if they understood that, would let you go backwards and say, no, if you take that logically out, if you continue that logic or whatever it would be, that if most of the accidents happen when you're loading and unloading, then let's discount most of these accidents because people don't load and unload in public. And that's what you're concerned about, is this perception that armed individuals are somehow more dangerous. I suggest prove that. They didn't do anything to prove it. They just kept saying it, and it seemed like the pro gun guys were just accepting it. No, I'm not sure if they
all
were
this
or if they were
in
just
the
not
brief.
there to fight every battle, maybe.
Well, they aren't going to
That's
read
ridiculous.
all 15 briefs. You know, I mean, the briefs were submitted, and you know there were some great amicus briefs by the pro-gun people, but you know they only have a limited time. I mean, they kept poor Paul Clement only 3 minutes. He's not going to sit there and read all the briefs. They're in the record. They've all read the briefs.
Well, it's ridiculous that they imply that these same people that are too unsafe to just carry their gun without touching it should have to touch it more to make themselves safer. A gun isn't going to go off if you're not touching it, and most of us carry our gun all day long without touching it or it being seen by any other person. So
all that logic doesn't make sense. It's not logic.
It's backwards. It's completely backwards, and it's contrary to the empirical evidence.
Yeah, I know. The New York and the New York Pistol and Rifle Association filed a brief that specifically had empirical evidence that said that, and so did the sheriffs, Western sheriffs, and I mean, you know, everybody filed a brief in this case that even that wasn't in the district, you know, of the Ninth Circuit Court. I mean, Texas governor filed a brief. I mean, everybody. Because it's an important case, which is why I was talking about it last night. So
some of the arguments were just ridiculous. They're like, well, you can't just randomly shoot a pigeon in town, so you shouldn't be able to carry a gun.
Pigeon hunting. I can't. I'm gonna. Pigeon hunting has got to be the one takeaway from. It's just non sequitur.
Like I'm accurate enough to hit a pigeon 100 yards away, or even 100 feet away with a 9mm. Come on. I want at least a double barrel.
Well, I mean, then you get into hunting regulations.
Well, I didn't like the fact that they allowed him to make that argument without bringing up the fact that, well, you're comparing actively firing your weapon for an unreasonable cause to carrying a weapon for self-defense and probably never having to fire it. They were pretending like it's the same thing.
And what also didn't make sense to me was the argument that if you want to carry it at the street, well, you don't just walk on the street. You're just walking to go to a business that doesn't allow you to bring a firearm into it. Then you don't need the right to carry. Because I mean, I go walk up and down the street for exercise every day. Well, I mean, I should, but it's more like every other day. But you know, I don't need to go to a business to walk up and down the street. And I walk by some dangerous areas too. I mean,
well, I mean, just think about this. You walk into a bank, and you deposit, not deposit, but you withdraw $10,000 or $9,000, whatever. You walk outside, and you have that cash on you. So they want you to be disarmed in public whenever you're the most vulnerable. Bullshit.
Yeah. I remember. Okay.
Well, I'll just say I've never done one of these before, but I'll say that the bank on that end will just say, oh, well, you should have played it smart and withdrew the quote-unquote $10,000 in a safe and secured manner, but then that just redirects it back around to our point in the first place. That in order to do it safely, we would have to have ourselves armed in order to carry that kind of money, or hire a security guard for that matter, which those laws would affect him in the first place. It would affect him the same as much or more as they would us.
I just wanted to bring up that besides the intermediate or strict scrutiny as far as applying the Constitution and what level of burden these regulations were, that they're, not talking about not, letting you carry or concealed carry, open carry. It was also in Justice Clarence Thomas's, when they were talking about the denial of picking up the Jackson case on hollow points and having to lock up the guns in your home when you're not carrying them. That was a 14th Amendment issue of the Privileges and Immunities Clause of the 14th Amendment that says the states aren't allowed to have rules, laws, or regulations that burden the civil rights in the Constitution, and so that was his dissent in that, and that's what they were talking about when they were talking about the San Francisco versus Jackson case. And so Paul Clement was basically saying that just because they could have any number, it's not just because they denied picking up the case doesn't mean they had that it's not like setting a precedent. That they could have denied it for a lot of reasons. But the whole thing is that I think what the Supreme Court will be waiting for is a case like maybe Peruta or not that they can set a level of scrutiny for all Second Amendment cases. So maybe this is it, maybe it's not. I don't know.
Well, one thing I liked about the lawyer that was arguing the pro-restriction side was he stood up there for literally 5 minutes making a case about the history of restricting gun carry in urban areas because of the dangers of carrying in urban areas. And then when the one judge called him on the fact that, okay, so you're saying it's more dangerous in urban areas than rural areas, then why are you making your case since you're a rural area? Well, I never said it was more dangerous in urban areas. And she's like, you didn't just say that? And nope, never said such thing. I'm like, you just spent 5 minutes explaining about the history of restricting carry in urban areas because of the dangers of carrying in urban areas.
He was running around in circles.
Yeah, well, Everytown and Brady amicus briefs are just ridiculous. But I mean, there's a lot of good pro-gun briefs in there. But like I said, you got to realize there's 8 judges there that were appointed by Democrats and 3 by the Bushes. So you got
and a bunch of them that couldn't walk without a cane.
Well, there's one guy,
No,
but
I only saw one.
I think that the girl with the blonde hair was, but I'm not sure. I think she was on the original 3-judge panel, and she voted for.
But just by listening to the judges and the questions, I didn't hear all of it. I heard about last maybe half an hour, 40 minutes.
Lots of dropouts. I'm going to re-listen to that entire thing, by the way.
Yeah, same here.
But the thing is, all the questions that were proposed all seemed pro-gun, pro-carry. Like, why are you even, restricting this? So that's something that I was actually surprised that there wasn't one on the contrary.
Well, these are judges. They're not dumb about the law. They, if they sit there and ask ridiculous questions, all the other judges will laugh at them. So, they have to come up with it. They have to, because they're all these legal minds have to come up with semi-intelligent questions. So
right, but still, all of the legal minds still have their opinion on what should and should not happen, just like we do. So let's say one of us was anti-gun, we would ask questions that would try to sway other people to our viewpoint, and that did not happen in the 30 to 45 minutes I was watching. And that gives me a lot of hope.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure we're going to lose this, and then it'll go to, they'll make an application to the Supreme Court, and then they'll pick it up or they won't. So,
my big question here is, how does this affect everything in the long run? I came into this without even knowing this stuff was happening tonight, so I'm completely blind here. I don't really understand. After watching it and seeing all that was happening, I understood what was unfolding in front of me, but I truly don't understand the foreseeable implications that could happen in the future as an effect of their decision that they're making here.
Wayne, that's an interesting comment you posted in the side chat there. But okay, what it means is in the 9th District covers 9 states. Okay, the 9th Federal Appeals Circuit Court covers 9 states. And all those states have different laws. But what this case says is that the sheriff can't, if the state completely bans open carry and the sheriffs and leaves it to the sheriffs to set to issue concealed carry weapons permits, and they don't issue concealed weapon carry permits unless you show good cause for needing it, that is in effect a ban on concealed and open carry, and that's what they ruled on. So in the 3-case panel, so basically how this matters to you at this point is that however this panel rules, it will probably go to Supreme Court, and then that will actually matter to everyone in the country, because if the Supreme Court is looking for, and this is my guess, and I've been wrong about a lot of things in my life, but my guess is that they're waiting for a case that they could set a level of scrutiny for constitutional rights on. Whether it's strict scrutiny or intermediate scrutiny, or that thing that I heard for almost the first time, I think it's means end scrutiny. Whatever standard they want to set, this might be the case. And if they make a ruling on a Second Amendment case, it affects people, or at least it's supposed to. I mean, they were talking about I don't know if you've read all 200 pages of the McDonald and Heller ruling.
I can't even read a McDonald's menu, let alone a ruling.
I really don't think, even if, I think whatever happens in this court ruling, that's going to be it, because I don't think the Supreme Court wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole. They're not going to touch something this delicate.
Well, they'll have no choice though. They'll have no choice though if it gets contested and it goes up to them. I think they'll have to eventually, because with Heller they intentionally pushed it off because they basically said this isn't specific enough and isn't showing the right type of damages for us to have to address that issue right now. So basically they were saying, until it gets specific enough, we're not going to make our ruling, but once it does, we'll have to.
I just don't understand to myself. I live in Florida, hence my name, Florida's Tactical Fatty. I don't get, what's this?
Where does the fatty part come from?
I weigh 400 pounds. What's this point that they're talking about? You have to prove you have a need for it?
Yeah, you have to show just cause to get a CCW permit in San Diego County.
Is wanting to protect my life and the life of my family not a good enough cause in general?
Nope. Not according to the sheriff in Yolo County.
Not in Florida.
They can have a knife at your throat before you're actually showing any true need.
Oh no, in Florida I can go apply for.
Sorry, I meant California instead of Florida. My bad.
No,
but basically, if you want to have a, I'm in Arkansas, I'm in a free state, but to my understanding, if you want to have a concealed carry out in Florida, just go and put a restraining order on someone, and then say, hey, I'm in fear for my life for this person.
Not even that. Hang on a sec. Where are you? I have in my hands, actually, in Florida, the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services Division of Licensing, Florida Concealed Weapon or Firearm License application in my hands. Basically, all it says is you have to pass a background check, submit your fingerprints, pay the fee, and boom, if you get approved, you get a permit.
Well, every state is different.
Every state's different.
And exactly. That's why there's this court case.
And it needs to be. It needs to be.
The actual problem with this case isn't that every state is different; it's that every county is different.
Oh, yeah, and they're making the case. They're making the case basically that even if we can see that the federal government or the Supreme Court has stated that you do have a right to carry your gun outside your home, then they go on to make the case and say, but every individual municipality has a right to tell you where you can't carry it outside your home.
They have the right to regulate you, and then
just the same as
and they're talking about, are these regulations a burden on the Constitution, and what level of scrutiny determines that's where we are in this.
It's kind of like if they told
America.
It was kind of like if they told you, well, you have a right to free speech anywhere and everywhere, except for where we tell you you can't, like outside or in a public place or on a public street or in a mall or in a shopping center or
or in the First Amendment zone or free speech zones that they set up in places.
That's exactly what I was thinking in Nevada with the Clyde Bundy thing. The First Amendment zone.
Which is, for me, I don't get.
Well, even in those cases, that makes more sense because they do that because, hey, you can't have them grouping up in the middle of the street. Let's put a space over here to the side where they're not blocking traffic. Then you can almost show a danger to public safety or to public activity.
And if you're a sensible person, you would understand, yeah.
We're not grouping up, we're not traveling, we're not concealed carrying in groups of 50 back to back in a semicircle walking down the middle of the street. So we're not causing any problems.
Not yet. I would say not yet on that.
And so the other interesting part of the case is that they were talking about is that, like that blonde judge with the girl with the lady with the blonde hair was saying that, well, we asked the state of California if they wanted in before we made the Peruta 3-judge panel ruling, and they said no. They sent a letter to the California Attorney General, and they replied saying, no, at this time we're not interested. And so after they issue the pro-gun ruling, the sheriff from San Diego drops out and says, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm not changing my policies unless the court orders me to. So now the state of California, Kamala Harris, future Democratic senator apparently for the state of California, who's currently the Attorney General, now she, wants to intervene on behalf of the state. And that's what this case was supposed to be for, to grant intervener status, and I think that, the gun people aren't opposed to that because they want it to go to the Supreme Court, and so if all they do is grant intervener status, and who cares, then she can apply for intervener status to the Supreme Court, and if they overturn it and grant intervener status, then the gun people will apply to the Supreme Court. So either way, there's going to be at least an application to the Supreme Court. I just can't see. I mean, whether they pick it up or not, they don't have to pick up any case they don't want to. But so it's getting the end is near as far as what's going to happen. It's just it's going to take a while for them to write an opinion, whatever they decide. So I wouldn't expect anything for 2 months.
And things are just going to have to go on about as they were for those 2 months.
Yes, well, these civil rights cases can take 40 years. So I don't know.
Is this chat open for that until the verdict comes in?
We only have an 8-hour limit on the chat, so.
I'll restart it afterwards.
Let's see if we can text somebody. If somebody knows Ed's number, maybe you can text one of these judges and get them moving.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have to write an opinion that makes sense, whatever they rule. So, as I like, this is my hobby. This is why I joined gun channels, because I like following cases like this, because the legal stuff is interesting to me. I like hearing the lawyers' arguments. I just wanted to hear more Clement and less of everybody else.
So you understand all that political lawyer jargon and
it wasn't political. It
no,
was
I don't
all
want to say political, but I'm just saying the lawyer jargon and all that stuff. I don't understand half that stuff sometimes.
Well, only thing I didn't know about was the outside cases they were referring to, because I mean, I haven't read. I just didn't read every brief by everyone, but they talked about some outside of the state cases that I wasn't familiar with.
Well, would those in that situation be? I think one of the judges in there actually, I don't want to say call out somebody, but they were literally mentioning are any of those cases actually relevant to the thing? I remember someone saying what relevance do these cases have to do with what we're talking about?
Yeah, they got into the weeds. Well, when you have lawyers that aren't as good, they kind of get into the end. The judges ask them questions, diverting them from the point they were originally trying to make, and then you just get way out into the weeds. Yeah. Generally, judges ask a question because they want to. They want to hear an argument to what they want, to what they're planning on ruling. So they can write their opinions, with that in mind. Because if it's going to go to the Supreme Court, whatever these guys do, I mean, they don't want to have a dumbass opinion. They take their time getting it right, and they've got clerks working for them to help.
Well, they're in the Supreme Court for a reason, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, that was the California that was the federal Ninth Appeals United States Court. So that covers 9 states, and they have courtrooms in Honolulu, and that was in San Francisco. And Browning, that James Browning or whatever, that wasn't the gun designer, that was a judge in the Ninth Circuit before. Same name, just different person.
I thought Browning's name was John.
Well, I forget what the name of the courtroom was, but yeah, I guess you could look at the page and on the lobby, and it'll be there.
I don't know. I know gun makers. I don't know Supreme Court judges. That's where I kind of fall short when it comes to things like this.
Court. Oh, U.S. Supreme Court judges?
I don't know judges. Period. That's exactly where I fall short in all this is that I don't want to say politics, but things like this happening, as you say, are important to the overall, I don't want to say grand scheme of things, but the overall outcome and effect it could have on the entire situation of everything.
Nation.
Yeah. I'm in all of this guns and ammo and politics and political and our rights. I've been blind for maybe 19 of the 23 years I've been alive. I've only fairly recently even got an interest into this stuff because I only was fairly recently shown how important it is. So I'm still very much in the dark in all of this because it's a lot to take in and try and understand for someone of my limited brain capacity.
That's okay. You're headed in the right direction. So just, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and.
Well, I always remember my eyes and ears. But it can seem a little overwhelming, and I don't want to. I guess you could say daunting.
Oh yeah, it's you go onto all the legal websites or if you go to calguns.net or what's the other one, or I don't know if gun websites we need like a page with just a reference of all the forums that just talk about the legal stuff.
And a translator as well, because sometimes I don't.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
I don't want to feel that I need a law degree to understand some of the $14 words these guys are throwing about.
You can't go onto the forums and like ask questions about legal questions like what does this mean and what does that mean, because they aren't going to want to explain it to you. You're going to have to do some research, and of course you can get enough of an education just by watching Law and Order, and then and because they use all that, and then you go and actually listen to the real courtroom, and it's a little bit different. But it takes. It's not going to happen instantaneously, but yeah, you just do one thing every day to learn. Go to one website and read it, and because there's so many cases, you just can't keep up. There's a lot of cases all around the country. This is just one case, so
I think I prefer the courtroom with more Mariska Hargitay. That's all I can say. It was a joke.
Well,
there's
anyway,
a lot of free learning out there available, including the NRA ILA. If you sign up for their free web newsletter, they will cite cases and what's currently going on in summary form rather than legal form.
So they put it to the layman's terms.
For the most part. But it is partially opinion as well. And as long as you realize that when you're reading it.
Well, that's when in the short time I've been on the internet and trying to do what I'm trying to do, I've learned to go about my life believing none of what I hear and half of what I see, and always work to read and understand things and try to have, as always, an unbiased opinion when it comes to some things. But there are just some things you can't have an unbiased opinion about.
Unless you see it on YouTube, then it's true.
Well, G-Webs, you had a question?
Well, I was typing it, but it's easier to just say, how long was their discussion just now that we watched? I only saw
an hour and 10 or 16 minutes, I think. Well,
too much. I just thought the people that are joining us maybe didn't realize that we're doing an after-action kind of summary of, or after, or whatever the hell it's called.
Right.
After the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals did their discussion for, I'm sorry, you said about an hour and 15, hour and 20?
Hour and 16 minutes, I believe. I mean, you can check it. It was up almost instantaneously. So
okay, so if anybody wants to check it out, it was the judges basically hearing the last, what was it called, testimony from this various positions.
No, that was legal oral arguments. It's called oral arguments.
Okay, and then they retired, they went into a room, and now we'll hear from them in a few months with their final decision. This is the last step before a potential Supreme Court decision. So this is as high court decision as we can get, really.
Yeah.
Okay, so it goes like your county courts, or like the city courts and all that, then...
District court, yes, district court, and then appeals court, and then Supreme Court. But in this case, they already reached a decision in this case on a 3-judge panel, but the guy who wrote the dissenting opinion on the 3-judge panel is now the Chief Justice of this appeals court, and what we think he's the guy that voted for an en banc review, so that's why there were 11 judges instead of 3. because there's only 23
En banc
judges.
review.
Yeah, that's called an en banc review. That means the 3-judge panel made a ruling that was pro-gun, and then 1 judge wanted to review it.
Okay,
And
let's stop again and then get out to the bird's eye view for people that are just getting into this. We're talking about the Peruta case, is basically the way people are referring to it. But what is the actual case? It's a California case, correct?
Yeah.
Peruta versus San Diego Sheriff Gore, and which was linked with also the same exact issue, the Yolo County, California case, Richards v. Prieta being the sheriff of that county, and they're holding the Kauai case, Baker versus the City of Honolulu police chief. So you could see how this is a county problem.
Nope. Because what we haven't described is what these people are doing is suing the counties, in other words, the state, because they're not given their CCW approval.
Right.
So they have to beg the permission of the state to get a CCW, and then they weren't given their CCW, so they took it to court, and now it's at a level of federal court that it covers 9 states. The way that our court system is set up, think of a pyramid with the Supreme Court at the top. The next bricks under that Supreme Court are the Circuit Court of Appeals, and this is the 9th Circuit. So California, Arizona, Washington, Oregon, Hawaii, they get the cases from those areas. This case rose from those 3 county cases. It got grouped together and brought this high in the judicial system, and it's about the ability of the state to deny concealed carry. So
the county
it's going to alter the federal perception of the Second Amendment that has been recently edited by the Heller decision, which said it is okay to carry a fire or to use a firearm for self-defense in your home, to keep and bear arms in your home for self-defense. That was reinforced with the Heller decision recently. This decision could possibly decide on if that Second Amendment ability to defend yourself and your property and your people applies outside of the home. That's what we're really talking about. And the judges now heard the last, what do we call these?
Oral arguments.
Oral arguments from basically both sides of the debate, which is the pro-gun sides were the NRA and the California Carry Board Forum something. CalGuns, sorry. And then the anti-freedom, tyranny infringement side was the sheriff of those states, the people that are being accused, right?
The state has asked for intervener because in the San Diego case, the state is intervening because the sheriff doesn't want, but in Yolo County, the sheriff is still pursuing the case. And just the only mistake you made in your description, everything is right except the people have to beg the county sheriff, not the states. So
Hawaii, could you just...
I was just using state to mean government, but I should have said government, but thanks.
Hawaii, for the benefit of those in the audience, could you just, disregarding Peruta just for a minute, describe in your area how the legal decisions flow from county to state in the various levels and then to federal at the various levels, regardless of what the case is? Because I think part of it is that people just don't necessarily have a good grasp of the court systems and how they are connected together.
Well, in any civil rights, denial of civil rights litigation, and this is civil rights litigation, is that it has to be heard in district court. And so it goes from district court, it's heard there, like the Baker case in City of Honolulu was here, that they were referring to. It's the same exact issue.
Not everything starts at that level, and G-Web's had touched on that. It starts at the county level.
No, it starts at the district, the district county, the state district court. I mean, because civil rights, denial of civil rights, deprivation of civil rights issues all have to be heard in state district court.
That's why I asked and I'm asking you, since it's your chat, just to give a general flow regardless of the issue. Don't focus on just civil rights, but how does one case feed from one level to the next? Because a lot of people don't necessarily get taught basic civics anymore.
Well, just how to understand how the system works.
Yes.
Right. Well, civil rights litigation is different than other litigation. So, and this is, a civil rights deprivation case. So, I mean, I'm not an expert on the court system. I just follow these cases, and I know it goes from civil rights deprivations have to be heard in a state district court, there's a ruling or a request for a stay and on a ruling or a decision, and that gets kicked up to an appeals court, and like one judge hears it, reads the filing for for hearing in the higher court, and they can either say yes, no, or and if what happened in like the Baker case is it got kicked up, and a judge said, okay, we're going to hear this, so they have a 3-judge panel at the federal appeals court level, which it came on a district ruling, and and so they actually reheard the entire issue, on in the appeals court, and after the appeals court, there's a lot of hurdles to go through each system, because it just like in this case in it goes we had they had the application that one judge heard, then the judge approved the application, then the 3-judge panel heard the case, and then now we have an 11-judge panel hearing the case, and then it can go to the Supreme Court. I mean, theoretically there could be a 23-judge panel on this case after the 11-judge panel, but that's not going to happen. So it's basically 1, 2, 3, but in each, based on where the case is, and what they appeal, what specific issue they appeal. They don't usually appeal the whole case. So like ask for a stay on one particular ruling that a judge made in the middle of the case. So it's just, but basically it's state district court, and then federal appeals, and then Supreme Court. None of which have to take the case at each level. They can say, we don't want to hear this because, I don't feel like it.
So they heard. Oh, sorry. So they heard it today. How long do they have to deliberate?
Quote unquote, as long as they need to.
Yeah,
Really?
they can take pretty much as long as they want. It's like, look at that guy in D.C. in the case in D.C. They literally had to get a writ of mandamus to get him to issue his pro-gun ruling. He didn't want to issue any ruling. And so the pro-gun people in District of Columbia went and they got a writ of mandamus from a federal court demanding that the district court, the DC is different than every other state because it's the District of Columbia. But they wanted to get a ruling either way in DC. Just any ruling.
And this one is a federal court.
Yes.
So let's say they are going a month. Could the Supreme Court say, "Hey, make a damn decision"?
Well,
that's the only thing that could get them to have a timetable.
If there's someone out there that thinks that someone here is sitting on their hands to try and bury this or trying to make it go away, yeah, someone somewhere higher up can say, "Hey, light a fire under your ass and get it done." And even people can. I know that even people can get together and can petition for these guys to give their answers on their rulings, and then it can push it and go from there.
It's not going to come to that. It'll take them a couple months to write opinions and stuff, basically. So, they aren't just going to say we rule, this way and that's it. They have to have logic. Well, there has to be a legal argument and a legal basis for their ruling. So they're going to, test why they ruled this way.
Wouldn't it be cool? Is if like right before July 4th, like July 3rd, 2nd, they go, "Oh, okay, we're just going to give you all your fucking freedoms. Here you go.
Here's all your guns, free guns and free carry permits and no regulations at all."
And while we're at it, here's some fucking ammo.
I was going to say I would shit a golden brick and then go buy some ammo, but never mind.
Apparently, Foose has never actually watched a case enter the Supreme Court, let alone leave.
Ooh.
You are correct.
By July 4th, he must be on crack.
Hey, I never said what year.
Too.
He didn't say which year.
Touche. Now, see, he's thinking like a lawyer. He's covering his rear end back there.
The higher you go up, the slower things go.
Yeah.
If they move at all.
Well, they can move, but again, it's
with these
Go ahead.
With these things, sorry to interrupt, but with these things, they move. They move as slow as you think they can, and never as fast as you want them to. That's just.
This case started in 2009, the Peruta case.
Unless it's an executive order, and then it happens real fast.
Right. Well, that's
Unless-
kind of
I was about to
off
say, what, they don't have a pin in a phone?
topic. They can just BlackBerry us something.
And then
Now,
you erase the
do it by
email
mass
later.
tweet.
Sent out a tweet with the ruling.
Do it by mass tweet.
The ruling will be fuck all you gun guys. Then can you fit that into a tweet? You know.
Yes, you can. 140 characters, I think.
All right. Well, you know, it's not going to happen that way. So this is an important case, and you know, I like watching this stuff, and but you know, it'll be a while before we hear anything else. So I was all excited yesterday, going, okay, I can't wait, you know. So it was it, but I wanted to hear more of Clement because he's the only.
I mean, I'll be excited the day it's announced to hear what's announced. I mean, today's more of a if you're into the argument part.
Yeah, I would just wish there wasn't so many damn dropouts. I am going to go re-listen to it all
Can I
and
throw
just
something out there?
take notes. Go ahead.
What if people were into the argument, and what if this became the next big thing on the YouTube and on the Instagram and on the Facebook, and all the conversations were about it?
That could light a fire.
At that point, wouldn't the people who are making the decision and others potentially know that this is something that we're not only interested in, but
Yeah, well, the good quotes that you could do Instagram photos with was like the pigeon hunting quote. That was awesome. You could put like something about pigeon hunting and put a picture of the lawyer on there or something, or one of the judges.
there were quite a few little one-liners that I'll encourage people to go grab. There were a bunch of them, actually. That guy, whoever he was, I'm going to go look because I know I wrote him in Facebook. I'll be back.
The two pro-gun lawyers were Paul Clement and Alan Gura. And I think Gura is NRA and Paul Clement is Calguns. But, you know, this is a prestige thing for them because they want to argue before the Supreme Court. But, you know, there was an arm wrestling contest about, you know, I mean, some people didn't want Gura because he pisses off all the judges, you know. And
well, the guy that
you
came,
know.
shoot, what was it? It wasn't Clement. It wasn't Gura. It was the guy that mentioned the pigeons. The guy that was talking about hunting pigeons. I don't remember his name.
That was the Yolo County guy, I think.
Yeah. He was getting snippy.
I found the one I liked the best. At most, there's a burden.
Yeah, that's bullshit. Just have that with the image of a guy carrying open.
It's not an infringement. At most, there's a burden.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
You see, I don't get. To me, half of this, and this just may be because I was raised in Florida by a good Southern father, but being able to defend yourself and your property, that just seems like damn common sense to me.
Yeah, well, what judges are dealing with is level of scrutiny and, like Justice Thomas said, the Privileges and Immunities Clause in the 14th Amendment. So those are the two issues I think that are going to matter. You know, common sense doesn't enter into courtrooms.
As much as you would think it would, it has nothing to do with it. Unfortunately, sometimes.
But here, people are out there saying in states like California, if you get a concealed, you're saying that common sense doesn't play into this, or the courts say you can't use common sense in all this. But there are people in California that say if you get lucky to get a concealed carry permit, hell, even here in Florida, the guy that does the concealed carry training classes up at the local range says having a concealed carry permit and having a gun on your hand is a major factor of everyday use of common sense. So how can something that inherently requires so much common sense be void of it in the making or breaking of it?
Well, California is a weird state. I got done talking to my folks right before because I bought my dad a Glock hat for Father's Day and a Glock mat to clean his Glock 30. And they have in California, the city of Calabasas has the water police. They're recruiting neighbors to, like, you know, rat out other neighbors who water their lawns, and it's just, you know, Remind
me to go to California.
The water police. It's the Jerry Brown's. I mean, it's a city, not the state, but it's a state law. Now a state regulation saying you have to, you can only water your lawn. I don't know. You can't water your lawn or something.
No, that we
And
have
they're
that
passing
during
out.
the summer
They're
in Florida.
passing
You
out
can't.
3-minute timers. They're passing out 3-minute timers for free to everybody, so they'll know to they can only take a 3-minute shower. I mean, the water police. Give me a fucking break. What's wrong with that state?
Well, I mean, they are running out of water, and
Yeah, but the water police, right out your neighbors. It's straight out of Hitler. It's Gestapo. It's
Gestapo. Exactly what it is.
Well, you look at it this way for California and water. There's actually a town that 15,000 people. Their water provider basically said, "We're not providing you water anymore." So now all the citizens are going to be without water unless they can find somebody else.
What's going on is the damn agricultural people give the state much money, so the state doesn't put any restrictions on that. It's popular.
They got to grow their boutique crops like almonds and pecan, all those things that no one really needs, but it's making someone a lot of money, and they're using up more. And then there's also the oil industry that uses more water every 15 minutes than most counties do in a week. And they all get their water privileges, and they don't restrict them, but they restrict the citizens.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Is there a water town in there, Max?
We have a thing out here right now. I'm living in California. And we have to reduce our water intake by 28%. So
I swear to God, I'm going to buy you a new microphone. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. $100 a day fine if we don't reduce our water by 28%.
Yeah, that's what the water
He's
police
in
are for.
California, so in order to save electricity, they have to make him turn his microphone up and down all the time.
That's what's going to be next. Turn your
They
lights
need
off.
the-
Or you get
They need the water for the hydroelectric dam to repower the Supreme. That's why the Supreme Court. That's why the court chat was dropping in and out.
Hell, if they're having so much water troubles, why were all the Supreme Court judges' jugs full to the brim of pristine, clean water?
Judicial fiat. I don't know.
It wasn't water; it was vodka.
I wish.
Yeah.
They might actually start speaking a language I can understand if you don't.
They brought it in from Canada.
Or that Evian stuff made from. That's what they need to do. That's what they need to go up to like Antarctica or you know what? They need to send Al Gore up to the North Pole to break off a giant iceberg, float it down to California, have them melt it down, and there's your water fixed.
You know what they need to do is take that oil pipeline that runs north to south. You put that damn thing east to west and start moving water.
No, like California, the problem with that is California then would sell that water to China.
Can't we get Bob to send us some water from wherever he is?
If you want water, we have major flooding in our area.
Yeah. Today it rained 8.5 inches here.
Got plenty of water here for you in Florida. That's for damn sure.
There's water everywhere, but it's in all the wrong places. So.
Yep, I actually had a washout on my driveway. It's about 7 inches deep, and I had to fill in and wash all the gravel out.
They had a thing on the news in California, my folks were telling me today, if some guy washes his car on his lawn with green-friendly soap so it doesn't kill the lawn, I mean, California's just weird.
Until he tries to drive off his lawn and realizes that the turf is wet underneath and just digs up all that grass.
And somebody, well, I mean, get oil leaking onto your lawn, it won't be good for it, but and somebody earlier was saying that Home Depot was, because it's illegal to collect rainwater or something, so Home Depot is selling like rocks for water that are things that don't look like water containers to capture rainwater, but are, like fake rocks with water containers inside and potted plant holders that are actually, and Home Depot was selling them for like, $2.60 each or something. I mean,
well, they're great. The gray water laws even here, that's a whole other subject. Even here in Florida, it's ridiculous. You can get so much trouble for trying to collect gray water here in Florida. It's ridiculous.
Florida's just one giant swamp. What are you worried about water for?
That's exactly my point. it makes no sense.
So yeah, if you're gonna move to free state from behind enemy lines, like you have to pick a free state with water. So that kind of rules out, Nevada, I think mostly.
Well, hell, come to Florida. The Gators have real good tastes for politicians.
Yeah, we'll let that groundwater, that water that we were going to be saving in buckets seep into the ground, so it dissolves the limestone, so we get giant sinkholes.
Mm.
Well, is there anything else on the guns that on the any other Second Amendment issues you guys want to bring up? Because I don't know how long we're gonna keep this up, but it's just like there's a lot of dropouts, and I think I missed a lot of stuff. I before I started this, I just re-listened to Gurus, and it was so short they only let him talk for 3 minutes, and then they got all the other idiots on there.
They only let Clement talk for 3 minutes. The only guy that was able to talk for more than 3 minutes that I could see was a guy that was anti-gun.
Well, no, Gura they let talk because he just isn't as good of a lawyer, and they wanted a pro-gun guy who they could pick apart. So and that wouldn't have been Clement. Clement has a better legal mind, I think, or at least just from what I've seen. And so I don't know who. I think the NRA pays for Gura, and Paul Clement is Calgon. So I think the NRA may be fucking this up, because they both want to argue in front of the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court does. I think there's this whole argument on one threads on, the Supreme Court doesn't like Gura because he's been argued on other cases, and they just trash him every time. So I guess he's the lawyer that gets trashed by all the judges.
NRA's deep down hidden agenda, so they can continue raising money and keep fighting.
They want to lose so they can have a reason to exist. Oh, that would be
exactly.
awful.
Yeah,
that's a word for finding a cause because of a result. I mean, there's no evidence of that.
That's self-preservation.
So we need to boycott the NRA.
No,
we could join Moms Against Madness or whatever it is.
From all I know is I am going to go back and watch this again later just to try and wrap my head around it and make sure I do truly understand what the hell is going on over there.
Yeah, and I need to write down all the outside cases they were referring to.
I mean, it's not like I need another reason to avoid going to California, Brady. But I just still want to be, because like you say, eventually down the road, be it, I just hope it don't take another. You said this started back in 2009.
Yeah.
I just hope it don't take another 6 years for this to come to some sort of resolution, and maybe, just maybe, if we play our cards right, we could sort of make this go quote unquote viral and bring it to the attention of a lot of people that they can't help but.
Well, I mean, look at it. It pretty much was viral. I mean, that had like 1,600 viewers at one point. More than that.
1,600 YouTube gets an average of 1 billion.
Yeah, but that was just on one
that's
court video.
Advertised on like the C-SPAN of stuff at a weird time in an afternoon. So,
yeah, the previous case had 55 viewers, so it kind of leaped on this one.
Oh, okay. That is a good representation.
I want to mention something that Posh said. We were chatting on Facebook while it was happening, and I can't say that I didn't disagree with whoever the last speaker was. Who was the last guy to speak?
Clement, I think.
I didn't agree with the way he said it, but I agreed with what he said overall, and I said something like that to Posh in the Facebook side.
Yeah, that was Gura.
Okay, Posh's point was valid, that this is basically the highest level of judicial stuff next to the Supreme Court. It's very precise, very much legal, not an appeal to anybody else. It's not an appeal to the people listening. We just happen to be listening, but these are lawyers talking to each other. So what I felt was like, basically his last point was something to the effect of, all right, even though I don't agree, let's say that it is more dangerous to allow concealed carry outside the home. He said it doesn't matter because the Second Amendment
ratified.
Well, the Second Amendment guarantees it, so it doesn't matter if it's dangerous or not. And that I was like, well, that's a little bit abrupt. Like, that's a little bit cut and dry. I totally agree. I would probably just try to word it differently, but I'm again thinking this is all for show, and it isn't really. It's lawyers talking to each other, and this is like the last time they get to do this formal, like, this is our position before you go make a freaking decision, right? This is our, this is our point of view on it. So when I thought about it that way, rationally, that was a great way to end. And I do agree with Hosh that if nothing else, no matter how it comes down, at least it seems like the people did give valid argument. Like, they did bring our position to them. So it's not like it was like we're not all frustrated because our opinions didn't get expressed, correct? Maybe not everyone, but it seems like
they weren't. Yeah, because they weren't necessarily doing it for praise of viewers or peers. They were doing it just to do it because of their own beliefs and such, right?
They were needed to be paid. They were being paid to do it.
No, money is always the universal motivator, but we weren't going to talk about that. I mean, I just think the world needs to be just reasserted with an abundantly over-the-top amount of common sense.
Well, we still have the Constitution, and that's like the best thing about America is the Constitution, and that's why, that's what I like about America. I don't, whatever I don't like about America, it's the Constitution, it's the Bill of Rights, it's all those freedoms we get or we're supposed to have, and at least there's a forum where we can defend our rights, even if it's all, if it's imperfect as it is.
Something in that document about privacy that we have a little bit of an issue with?
No, there's nothing in there. Actually, there's nothing in there about privacy. That's interpretations by judges. That's not in there, to my knowledge. But I'm not a lawyer. I didn't go to law school, so.
Well, he's not one of those fancy pizza lawyers or bacon lawyers.
It comes off property. And knowledge and information is considered property.
Oh, intellectual property, yeah.
Well, if you want to forward me a specific section of a Bill of Rights or the Constitution that refers to privacy, I'll read it.
Well, it's not privacy. It's not privacy. The word privacy per se. It's privacy in the sense that your thoughts, your beliefs, and other information are of your own, and they are your quote unquote property because they are your own. So you have a right to keep them, and you have the right to, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, a privacy to keep them to yourself and keep other people from knowing or getting into them.
Well, I don't know what that has to do with this particular, Bill of Rights issue.
But I was trying to just clarify things.
I only mention it because you refer to the Constitution as being the save-all document, and it is until it gets infringed upon and corroded away, which is what we're trying to prevent. A non-stop battle that will never end as long as people realize that.
Right, but privacy didn't have anything to do with that.
This is where it's off the Fourth Amendment. Have the people have the right to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects.
That's against illegal searches with warrantless searches that the British did.
And that's where privacy comes from. Searches of
that's an interpretation. That's a judicial interpretation. That's not actually listed. That I don't know. Some people agree or disagree with. I don't know. That it doesn't say privacy. So, it's search and seizure. That's a search and seizure law. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't interpret that for you.
Well, none of us are yet. We're all here discussing it. Yeah. That doesn't seem to stop us, and nor should it.
No, just for me, this is all, like I said in the beginning, this is all just a little overwhelming to have all this happening when I can barely even understand how to get my own concealed carry permit in a state that readily is very easy to get a concealed carry permit in. It's just the only real thing preventing me from getting it is I can't afford to pay for the permit right now, or I can't afford to pay for the fees.
Will made a comment on the site internal here that that was the girl who actually she's if you listen to the original oral argument to the 3-judge panel in the Peruta case, she was asking, she was the same. I'm pretty sure she was the same judge that asked on the 3-judge panel, well, does the state attorney general want to be involved in this case? We sent them a letter. She's making fun of him in the original 3-panel case too, for because they said no. The court sent them a letter saying, do you want to be involved in this case? Yeah. And then when the case didn't come out the way they wanted it, then Gore dropped out, and the sheriff of San Diego, Gore, dropped out, and the state, which applied for intervenor status, which was what this en banc panel of 11 judges, that was the motivation for bringing up this case at all. It wasn't to rehear the case. It was just to rehear whether this, the pro-gun people want this to be reheard in the Supreme Court, so they don't mind an en banc panel. And again, I don't think it matters which way they rule, because it's going to go to the Supreme Court for it to affect the whole nation at one point. So, but their opinion will be interesting to read, even if it's an anti-gun opinion, and because I'm sure everybody is already started their appeals, writing an appeal in case they lose, both sides. So.
Well, now it's all we can really do is just wait and see.
Yeah, don't let it consume your lives, but yeah, just once a day, go check out, something. Go check out a case, read some legal forums, or just, there's plenty of gun sites out there that focus on law stuff. So.
The only consuming that's going to be done is me and my Cheetos.
All right. Anybody have anything else?
Dude, why did I say Cheetos? I didn't mean Cheetos. I mean, never mind.
Anybody have anything else?
Thanks for hosting it after. It was good because we've all had a little pent up, like, what the F stuff happening. It's good.
It's always good to have these, because I had like I said, I have a lot of confusion with this, and I do come away from this after chat with a lot of clarity, and I do thank you for that. And hopefully, I can gather more understanding as this goes on, because it irks me that I can't actually, I don't want to say fathom, but I have difficulty in understand what's going on to something so important to me, and I don't like that.
Yeah, well, that's cool, because that's like the main reason, 99% of why I joined gun channels is just so I could help spread the word on this stuff anyway. Then that's pretty much it for me. Most of the other guys here have more general gun knowledge than me, unless it comes to like redoing an AK stock and how to redo that or something. I might know a lot about that because I've done it, but I follow this stuff, and it's important. And so, just 2 months late from now, we'll have a discussion on however they ruled, and whatever Supreme Court appeals get filed shortly thereafter.
I'm gonna make a phone call and see if we can't just be there live when they're giving out their final.
Well, decision. It won't be. It'll just be a document issued on the court website. It's not. They don't have a meeting.
Announce it.
Yeah, they don't announce it. It's just
the procedure.
What's that?
We're going to petition to change the procedure.
So we have a big celebratory hurrah when they announce it our way, or a giant groan of dissatisfaction when they announce it the other way.
Exactly.
Well, again, it's going to go to the Supreme Court. So the time for the hurrah or the groan is if the Supreme Court picks it up, and then if they rule in our favor or not.
Yeah, but that's what we in Illinois thought too, that it might go straight to the Supreme Court, and it didn't, because it would have dragged the other remaining states along with us. So they didn't push it.
Well, yeah. So the whole thing is that I'm hoping, is this case narrow enough so they could make a narrow ruling? Because generally, like on just scrutiny or privileges and immunities, is this case narrow enough so that the Supreme Court would want to make this decision with out saying, okay, everybody gets free guns and free carry permits, but they can just make a narrow ruling on scrutiny, which gets interpreted again by the lower courts. On if it's strict scrutiny, that'll be in our favor, and and if it's means and scrutiny, it probably won't. But or privileges and immunities, whether state officials can't make the rulings that put burdens on people's constitutional rights. But so are you going to put together? Can we have a section of like just a links section, for people to go to on, of like legal gun forums kinds of sites, or just gun forums that are, outside of gun channels, or something that where people just talk about this stuff?
Yeah, if you go down the main menu at the top, there's one there that says media, and then down there we've got forums in there somewhere in websites. So we can definitely add them there. And I thought we already had somebody had built a channel for legal stuff. We could definitely enhance that with, like you're saying, like a glossary. Is that what it would be, like, of legal terms?
I was thinking more like a link section of legal Second Amendment websites that cover that.
Well, wouldn't every second go into Every Second Matters?
Yeah, we pretty much have a growing list of all the pro-gun organizations, so definitely take a look at that list, and if we're missing one, we can add it. That's the whole point, is to keep current and updated. I also have the antis there to make it easier to find them.
Okay, yeah, I missed that one last month because I think I was just busy doing something, but I'll have to make sure I don't miss it this month, July coming. So that's the second of every month, almost every month, and
nope, pretty much every single month since we started it. I don't think we ever missed a month. They're all up there on the website, and they're all on the podcast. It sometimes takes me a month if I'm busy to get the last one up, but we've had one every month, and they're all up there.
All right.
Pardon me.
All right. Anything else before we conclude this one?
I have an unrelated question.
Okay.
I've been trying to figure out the available hosting sites or things like that. Available hosting slots. I don't know if you guys have a frequently asked question on how to become a host and such.
Yeah, we'll add something, but there's really no procedure. So if you want to host, and we post them.
You go into the lobby.
Not a room, we'll make more room. So feel free to use the tools that are there. There's not a lot of set procedure on how to do it. If you need more help with how to do it, we'll work on that for sure.
Oh, that was just my biggest question, like how to do it.
Yeah.
I was talking to a guy earlier, and I had signed up for for gun channels about it was Friday of last week. I had stumbled across a thing on YouTube, and I went and signed up on gun channels that night. And I tried to sign up or log in again yesterday, and my account wasn't there. It was saying that my account was not on the thing, period. So I had to re-sign in again, and by then I had lost, I couldn't find my way back to what I had before. So I was just trying to find a way to become a host, or how, someone told me you do Google Hangouts and then you post a link on the thing and then do a chat room.
That's pretty much the hang of it. So we'll post a video someplace with a screen capture on how to do it. Or actually, I'll encourage a bunch of people to do it, because all I can show you is how to do it the way I do it, on the systems like the Windows and the Google or whatever, Chrome OS or whatever this thing is, a browser.
Yeah, I use
we'll
Chrome
get people
as well,
on iDevices and iMacs and whatever else internet stuff is out there too.
What is your Hangouts name? Your gun Hangouts. Your gun channel's name.
The name of the Hangout or the name of my...
no, your account.
Florida Tactical Fatty.
If my keyboard will work. I'm going to friend you, and then we can go ahead and get a chat. I'll send you a chat, and I'll show you how to set everything up.
Okay.
Like on Google or on...
From Google, and how to get it hooked up into gun channels.
Okay,
Okay.
before we go anywhere else on that, does anybody have any other Second Amendment stuff or related to Peruta that they want to bring up before we go offline? Anybody?
No, you said it's Florida's. Hey, just put it into the internal, and I'll get you.
All right.
I think we're set away.
Okay, so this has been Hawaii Volcano Squad. This has been a Lock and Load at Peruta after chat. And I think G-Webs, it was posted earlier. I know I posted a link on the news section, and G-Webs posted it. The actual is an hour and 16 minutes, if you want to hear it, of the lawyers arguing the Peruta case in front of the 11-judge en banc panel. And it's worth a listen, so check it out.
I'm definitely gonna listen again because I'm hoping that the bandwidth issues are what caused all those glitches. So maybe it'll be more like.
Well,
I
I've had this before with just watching gun channel stuff, so I thought it was because of my crappy internet, but it should clear up after it's all said and done.
Yeah, it was the case. It was that the previous case had 55 viewers, and this one had 1,670 or whatever. So that Google wasn't prepared for it or something. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. We're gonna go offline, and I'll probably see you guys Monday for the next Lock and Load chat. Aloha.